Erik Hoium, Director of Strength and Conditioning here. This is my 8th year as the Director of S&C at Central. A little background on me: play junior college baseball, Division III football. When I got done with my undergrad at Pacific Lutheran University, went out to Olivet Nazarene in Bourbonnais, Illinois. Spent a year coaching football as a graduate assistant out there. I got to monitor the weight room for that year, 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. groups, 4 days a week was a lot of fun, kind of doing that grind. After a year there, was able to come back, get a graduate assistant position here at Central coaching football. Did that for 2 years. When our director of S&C at the time, Jason Dudley, took a job, he jumped up to Wazoo. I stepped in on as an interim here, and then was lucky enough that when we opened up a national search for a new coach, I was able to keep it in and trying to build on everything from there. It's fun for me to be up here. You know, Coach Ratcliffe, I haven't even truly met you yet, but first guy I ever stole anything from. I think I really needed to learn about warm-ups and things like that when I was taking over, and I did about a 4-hour deep dive on anything I could find on you and developing those things. So it's pretty cool to be just up here. Obviously, you know, not an expert by any means in weight room design, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that I've had some experience that not a lot of people in their career get, which is being able to design a weight room from the ground up and be a part of the entire process. So hopefully there's some nuggets in here that you can take when you do get the opportunity to maybe expand on a weight room that you do have, add new equipment. Just want to walk you through kind of our thought process and what went into making the decisions that we've been able to see so far today. Let's see if this works. Oh, there's Jess. Got it. So, the space you're in, we call the Center for Athletic Performance. We were able to open this fall, October. The flooring, obviously, we went with Mondo, we went with their Valor, and technically I think it's the strength. So we have the full 18 millimeter. We tell all of our recruits that come in, I tend to not tell our current athletes that on a typical drop zone that you'll have on the platforms, you're going to have an extra 10 millimeter little cushion under there. All 6,000 square feet in here, basically one big drop zone. We don't like telling our current athletes that, so we can keep them doing heavy stuff in the space of that platform, but we do have the ability to do that anywhere. The equipment, you know, we tried to go with a single vendor, and we'll talk about that, but anything that we didn't bring over from our old facility is all Life Fitness or Parent Strength. Now, we went from our old facility was around a 5,000 square foot facility that we had split into 2 different areas. Footprint of that was pretty unique. We were 8 racks in there with platforms, 8 racks, 12 platforms. So we had 4 freestanding platforms. We had a couple incline benches, and then tried to get as much floor space as we could. So that was a unique challenge, but taking all those considerations and figuring out over the 5 or so years that we spent in there, we had a pretty good laundry list of issues that we wanted to solve moving into the new space. And that's kind of the light that we looked at this new opportunity. We had filters that we wanted to look at this new space through and make our decisions through those filters. So some non-negotiables for us. We have at any point of the year anywhere from 400 to 450 athletes. You know, when we're training 3 or 4 times a week, you do the math, we get up to 1,800 athletes that we're going to see on a given week. Our scheduled session size, obviously our largest rosters are going to be our biggest stressors. Generally, we're looking at that 30 to 40-ish athlete range for our larger rosters, but the biggest stressor that we have just in terms of bodies in here is we need to be able to get our football travel team to win 1 session. Generally, we're going to be in that 50 to 60 range. So when we looked at that, it's like, okay, the amount of racks, all the equipment, need to be able to solve that problem. If you can solve that problem with that football travel squad, get them through in 1 hour, 1 group, everything else is going to kind of follow suit there. So that was the biggest thing we wanted. Again, on how we function, we'll go 1 hour sessions. realistically, we're 53 minutes from starting to warm up to starting to clean up and get them out the door in 58 minutes. And that's true for all of our teams. I know Corey talked about having standards and everyone being really similar, being the same in terms of those standards of operation, and that's true for our program as well. Another main thing that we wanted, and you guys know, myself and my staff, we spend a lot of time on the floor, those 12-hour days, 14-hour days. We wanted to reduce coaches' time spent on the floor as much as possible. So how can we be more efficient with the time that we do that? We went from a shared space where we have from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. that we could not use the weight room. Now we have control over it all day. So how can we best utilize that time to get these athletes in and out? And then the trade-off being, can I give them some time back, right? So we were able to get rid of the 6 a.m. lift. That was a big one for our athletes. They were not sad about that, and neither were we. It's awesome to not have to be in the space at 5:15 in the morning every single day. We were also able to cancel get rid of the 6 p.m. lift. Again, so we're shutting down the space at 6 p.m., 5 p.m. is the start of our last lift at best every single day. So pretty unique now in this space, being able to truly solve that problem. And I know how lucky I am to be a strength coach that's able to be home 5 days a week having dinner and that's 6 o'clock out. That's a special thing. When we talk about what makes a good job, that's up there pretty high on the list. The teams that we have, again, 13 to 16, it's 13 varsity teams, but we can get up to 16 groups. Track's always the one that, track's one team, but it's like 15 different groups, right? But anywhere from 13 to 16 different teams or groups. Another thing that we needed the ability, if we were going to be efficient, to train 2 groups at the same time without having them step on each other's toes, right? One thing we love about our summer training is we get athletes of different sports the opportunity to live together, maybe even in the same rack or at a rack right next to each other. But when we're scheduling teams, we want them to feel like they have their space and their own coach and it's their unit. And how can we design a facility that's going to allow us to get that done, but still utilize the space the whole time, right? If I have a 15-person volleyball roster in here, I don't want to take up the whole space for an entire hour just for those 15, right? Can we get another 40 in somewhere else? So those were the filters that we were kind of looking through every decision that we were going to make, from equipment to space, layout, all of that. This is just some stuff that I learned in the process. Considerations when you're looking at your space, location within the building. We were able to build onto our existing field house, and it's all turfed. And Mondo did our track in there, our straightaway track in there, and it's great. We would have loved to be attached to that so we could utilize that in our same hour that we're training. So location in a building, if you choose that, a lot of times that's dictated to you. It was to us. But that's a big one. Square footage, and more specifically the dimensions, right? 6,000 square feet is great. We're in a hallway, right? We're less than 40 feet wide, so we got to know that. Where do the pillars stick out? How far do they stick out? Are they uniform? Right? We found out in this process when we're doing the footprint of the floor that these northern 3 pillars stick out an additional 2 inches from the southern 3. Right, which changes where we can have the platforms, even how big the platforms. You guys might not notice, but we have 4-foot platforms on the east side, 6-foot platforms on the west side. How far, right, and there's your square footage, how much room we have for flags and all that. And we got down to the inch, really. Realistically, we have one platform that is butted up to one of those columns. We needed to make sure that we had enough space for that one, but again, that's going to change the whole thing if you want it to look decent. Of course, we can have everything, but we're not going to do that. So dimensions is really important, where your entrances and exits are, avenues of egress, all that stuff, emergency exits, that's a big one. You get told, learn throughout the process, can't do anything here, can't do anything here, because that's this emergency exit, or there's a fire extinguisher there. So getting all that stuff down before you start planning. Ceiling height, not just ceiling height, but if you ever get the opportunity to do this, make sure you know if anything's coming out of the ceiling, because that changes stuff. If you look down on our racks, we have our physio ball or stability ball holders on the top of our racks. You can't use them. Stability balls are too big. We did not know that some of this piping was going to stick down exactly where it is. So those will get sent back to Hammer Strength. They've been great and gracious. We'll be able to send those back. But that was something we didn't know until, we get in here. And then storage. If you've ever run a weight room, storage is a big issue. We have 0. That's an electrical closet. It's the only storage that would be available. And I've literally been told you will never get a key for that. Yes, sir. So we needed to get equipment that was going to allow us to store stuff right on our racks, have some centralized locations for things that need to be used all throughout the facility. But storage was an issue. We couldn't purchase equipment. We cannot purchase equipment that's going to require us to store it in a certain place. If it doesn't fit in our GA's office, then it's probably not for us. That's what their office tends to look like. So starting with the surface and the flooring, our needs, we wanted to not be beholden to platforms. So we used to have the raised, 3-4 inch platforms. That's good for defining a workspace and keeping other people from stepping off to the platform. So I understand there's some utility in that, but it also limits you of what you can do when you're not Olympic lifting, when you're not using a barbell, when you're not using a dumbbell, right? That line, realistically, another 8-ish inches off of where that raised platform would be, is unusable space. It just is if you're going to be safe in any capacity, especially if someone's on that platform moving. So we wanted a platform that was inlaid. That way we could utilize that space if we want. Again, as you guys look down, you'll notice that if we move those 6 benches that are in front of the dumbbells, we have, it's about 6 yards, 7 yards from the edge of the dumbbells to the safety pins of the rack, or the edge of the benches in each rack, that allows us to do some sprint work. And because those platforms are inlaid, we can now use that additional 3, 4, 5 feet that we've got there. That was absolutely intentional. That was something that we were looking for. Obviously, we want to be able to Olympic lift, so having drop zones and platforms that could take a beating over the years was important. Like I just said, being able to do plyometrics and speed, agility, quickness stuff, that's a big deal for us, right? Not just being power lifters or any of that, but doing some more dynamic movements in here was a big deal. And again, with less than 40 feet in width, we had to be pretty specific in what we were looking for there. And then simple upkeep. I think when we were putting out, or when we were receiving bids, most of them were coming back with the squares. You know what I'm talking about? Those 2x2 or even 1x1 squares that they're gluing down. We didn't want that. Too many seams to us, and the feedback we were getting in researching this was more seams means more opportunity for liquid to get under there when you're cleaning. There's also now more grooves that can collect dust and dirt and all of that. So we wanted something that was just kind of one deal, and staying away from the squares in order to have simple upkeep. Once, obviously, aesthetics, right? We wanted it to look good. We wanted to be able to customize it with our logos and being specific with coloring. We went with light gray. Main reason we went with light gray is I've got natural lighting from either end of the hallway, and that's it. We go a dark floor in here, it's going to be a dungeon, right? And in the winter, when you guys know we're showing up, it's pitch black outside. When we leave the building, it's pitch black outside. And if it's dark in here, it's going to be rough on just us as coaches. So we needed to be able to bounce light as much as possible. We also positioned mirrors on the wall intentionally to be able to reflect some light throughout the space. So being able to pick certain colors was important to us. Again, we went with the Mondo Valor, and at risk of sounding like an advertisement for them, couldn't be happy. Right, one of the big things we needed to solve with our old facility too was slickness. There were certain plyo movements, even tests like a broad jump test, that got a little sketchy for us, just because the surface itself, if there's any dust on it, let alone sweat or anything like that, feet are going out from under athletes and it can get pretty dangerous. So we wanted something that wasn't going to be so slick, and Valor's been that. We've had zero issues. Even when this surface does get wet, it's been fine. We've had no one doing any of our plyo stuff and had any issues. Knock on wood, right? But we're about a year into this thing, and we've had zero issues with that. So couldn't speak highly enough of this. Something personally as a coach, again, I've got anywhere from 4 to 6 scheduled teams lifting on any given day of just my teams that I personally oversee. And then with our open hour model and helping our graduate assistants, we're spending 10-ish hours on our feet walking around on this surface every single day. Ankles, knees, hips, low back, zero issues. It is a night and day difference from where we were. Our old space was concrete, about an 8mm rubber pad, and that was it. And yeah, at the end of the day, you're feeling it. On this, it's significantly different. Have a chance to talk about the surface a little bit more later. With the equipment, I know this is pretty small, but the needs with going back to that, the non-negotiables and the filters need to get 56 athletes through. We knew we needed a minimum of 14 racks. Okay, 4 athletes ideally per rack is going to allow us to get to that number. Again, I wanted something that was a minimal footprint, given that each inch in this space was really, really important. So we needed to select a rack that was going to be as narrow as possible and give us a minimal footprint. We wanted to be able to solve the problem of getting additional pole variations. In our old facility, we were dumbbells, right? You do some kind of bent over row with dumbbells, some kind of bent over row with a barbell, and then vertical poles, it's pull-up variations. I've got plenty of 300-plus pound dudes, and pull-up variations get pretty tough. They get sick of strapping themselves up to bands or holding the isos or eccentric variations. So being able to solve some of those issues with multiplying our pull variations really was, from an equipment standpoint, the main hurdle we needed to get over. Wanted sturdy racks. We do a lot of pin pulls, pin presses, rack pulls, rack presses, what we call them here. But we do a lot of that, so I needed something that was going to be sturdy and able to take a beating and thus not have to replace it in 2 years. We needed more dumbbells. We finally got to a point in our program where a 135-pound dumbbell just wasn't heavy enough, so we needed some more big boys in the weight room. We also just needed more numbers. If we're going to go up to 14 racks from 8, then we need more. I need more 20s, right? I need more 30s, and significantly more here. If we're going from 8 racks to 14. No less than 6 of anything. And I'll explain a little bit why 6, but no less than 6 of anything. 6 workstations is our smallest amount of workstations that we'll ever go. So I needed, if we're going to have a piece of equipment, if it's an ab rollout with TRX straps, anything like that, I need at least 6, so I can have one of those in each one of those 6 stations. We wanted to go with a single vendor, just money-wise, and that proved to be an intelligent thing for us to do. Anything that is not Life Fitness or Hammer Strength from an equipment standpoint is stuff that we have brought over from our old facility that was just good enough. Saved us a ton of money. I believe final numbers, we have 600,000-ish worth of equipment in here that we got for significantly less than that by going with a single vendor for everything. Barbells, dumbbells, adjustable dumbbells, all of that. Obviously, we wanted it to be customizable. One thing that Dr. Dennis Francois has done, our athletic director, that's been amazing when he got here, rebranded all of athletics, and we've got a billion different logos that are just ours, and we wanted to display that as much as we possibly could. And as you guys can see, it's turned out great. Multi-use pieces, attachment capability. Again, keeping that footprint and being able to do more things as one of the low-hanging fruit that we needed to grasp. We don't want any piece of equipment in here that's not going to be multi-use. It's not worth it. Would I love to have a leg press machine in here, maybe for some injured athletes? Absolutely, that would be amazing. But it ends up being kind of a single-use piece of equipment. So trying to make sure anything that is going to take up a footprint on the floor is going to be multi-use was a really big consideration for us, and that's something that we continue to consider every time we work through it. And then workstation capability. We wanted those 4 athletes at a given rack to not have to move from that rack if necessary, right? As much as we can kind of keep them in that space. Obviously, if we're going to go do some movement quality stuff, some plyometric type work, then they'll need to go to open space. But as much as we can keep them in one spot allows us to get more numbers in there as well. So Life Fitness and Hammer Strength was our vendor. Again, amazing. No qualms. They were great to work with. Came out, helped us through every step of the process. We were able to get 3D renderings throughout the years that we were putting this thing together. And pretty biased, but I think the branding, especially coupled with Mondo's platforms, has looked pretty good with the different options they gave us there. So our facility, like I said, we're 15 racks, 7 combo racks. We have 14 pairs of adjustable dumbbells that go from 5 pounds up to 90 pounds. We were able to add an additional couple racks of traditional dumbbells. So now we have 2 of everything from 17.5, just about 2 of everything from 17.5 pounds up to 150 pounds. So our new traditionals that we got go from 90 or 95 up to 150. So we're able to solve both of those issues, getting heavier stuff and getting more. Really, it was the money we saved by going with those adjustable dumbbells and having kind of that workstation model that allowed us to get the heavier ones. Because as you guys know, dumbbells are outrageously expensive just to ship, let alone the units themselves, right? So that was great. We got 8 new GHDs. We utilized that space in the middle of how we have the rack split to put GHDs. Those are going to be used by both groups, right? I didn't say this earlier. We've got 8 racks up north, 6 racks down south. And so we can have that 40-ish, 30 to 40-ish number up north, and then our smaller groups down south. Any of the equipment that we're going to use with both groups, or the potential for that, is going to be in the middle, so we're not having to cross over each other, or if we do, we have to do so as little as possible. So those 8 GHDs, they stay in the middle there. We've also got 14 Nordic / rear foot elevated attachments that go directly on our rack. Again, so now we're not just beholden to a glute ham raise, but we can start doing some Nordic stuff. We don't have to burn a body holding heels down or even doing them on the dumbbell rack like we used to. So that's been a great addition in terms of equipment. The cable machines that we have right behind the screen, those are dual vertical and horizontal. Again, not just being a one movement option was important for us, and increasing that horizontal pull variation capability that we have was huge. So having one piece of equipment that offers both of those was pretty sweet to us. So we jumped on those, and we got 6 of those. We went with 7 of the manual treadmills. I have 3 of the traditionals, and those 3 traditional treadmills are here because I have a boss, and when your boss says you're getting something, you get something. We don't use those with the athletes hardly at all. Athletic training will come in and have some athletes that are rehabbing, do some work on those. But the manual treadmills have been amazing. We can do our tempo runs. We can get into some conditioning stuff. We can get up to 90-ish% of a sprint, which in season has been great for us. I know our baseball guys did a bunch of that this last spring. It worked really, really well. So those have been awesome. We've got 5 spin bikes. They're generally kind of out in this space. We'll mostly just use those for rehabbing athletes, or maybe if we're just trying to do some top-up conditioning work, some non-impact stuff. So we did spin bikes. Our 2 belt squats are from Rogue. We brought those over from our old space. Those are probably our most valuable piece of equipment in terms of bang for buck. The amount of athletes we've been able to improve their recovery time just by keeping them training despite some issues that they've had. If they got low back stuff, shoulder stuff, anything that's not going to allow them to get under a bar to do some of our compound lower body movements, we're able to strap them up to a belt squat and still get some good lower body work in. And you'd be surprised how many football players have low back issues and can't lift today on a squat day. And then, all right, go over to the belt squat and, I think I'm okay, coach. I'll get it. And those are great. You can put bands and stuff on them so we can do some more power type work. We can work bar speed, if you will, on that. So those have been awesome. Plyo boxes, we mirrored everything for each side, despite the fact that there's 8 racks and 6. The equipment, again, is mirrored. So we've got the exact same plyo box options, med ball options on each side. This west wall is fortified. We made sure of that so we can do all of our med ball throws and get real aggressive there. We also intentionally didn't put our TVs on that wall for that purpose, right? They're kind of hidden behind the racks, which from a functionality standpoint, sure, you probably want your TVs over here, but all it takes is one athlete getting loose and now you don't have a TV anymore, right? So those are over there, but we'll do all of our med ball throws and stuff. In that, we also have tablets and mounts that we put on each rack. We were able to, in this process, kind of lump in team builder subscription. So utilizing that for the athletes has been amazing. But we can also link that to our TV. So we'll put the lift up there in order to talk through it. We have the opportunity to show videos. If we need to, it's something that I've actually stolen from Rock. I want to do more of just putting videos of good-looking power cleans on loop on Power Clean Day. That's something we're going to do a bunch of next year. Just putting it up there and Chase. You think you look like that? Well, now let's video you. Let's see. Do you look like that? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Going from there. So those have been amazing for us. With Team Builder, we also have the ability to put our leaderboards up. Those real-time leaderboards. Those have been awesome. Can't tell you the amount of times I've watched a dude loading a bar. He's about to do a set, maybe it's back squat, and he looks up, screen refreshes, and his buddy that's 6 racks down just jumped him on the leaderboard, and then he walks back over, slides a 2.5 pound on each side, and then goes to work. So that's been a lot of fun, being able to use those. So that's our facility. The solutions to those problems, again, we've kind of touched on most of this stuff, but we say our maximum capacity is 56 athletes. Again, we shorten the time that we're spending on the floor from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's a godsend for us. You talk to people in the corporate world and any other walk of life, they look at that. 11 hours every day? Yeah, it's amazing. So loving the amount of time. That solved a lot of issues for us. We're better coaches now. Right, it's sure, we can go till 8 p.m., but you got to understand, I'm a way worse coach by Wednesday. You know, I'm a way worse coach from at 5, 6, 7 p.m. than I am at 10 a.m. And once Wednesday hits, I'm probably a bad coach for the rest of the week. So being more efficient has been amazing. We were able to get 2 separate working spaces for 2 separate groups. A lot more vertical pull variations, a lot more press and pull variations, obviously plyo sprint options, all that stuff we've kind of touched on already, being able to solve that with our space. Ultimately, I think that should be it. That was really fast. We spent the first portion of the year facility wasn't done, so we did our initial testing out on the basketball floor for our vertical stuff with our volleyball team in the fall during camp. Because we did it on the basketball floor for that initial testing, that mid-season vertical testing, we did it on the floor again. And then the week of regionals, Monday before they left, our coach comes in, he's like, hey, I want to see what they're touching. Okay, that's a heck of a way to start regional week. All right, we'll get it done. We didn't have gym floor space, someone else had it scheduled. So we did it in here. Every single athlete on that roster touched the same or higher than they had at any point previously in the year, which is pretty awesome. So I got to go to our volleyball coach's office that day and say, Coach, I'm pretty good at this. I ain't that. I'm pretty sure this floor is helping them get off the floor a little bit. So when I talked to Ethan, he's like, oh yeah, you're gonna jump higher. Of course, we didn't tell the girls that. We wanted a reason. A little ego boost, everyone's feeling great. But we've seen a lot of numbers go up. So it's been amazing.